The good thing about real estate is you can always find properties below market value. So you don't have to worry about what are the prices. As long as you can buy below market value, you're safeguarding yourself. You can't do that in the stock market. If you could, I would do it. But you go to jail for that type of thing in the stock market. You get rich for that type of thing in real estate.
This is a good episode. We have Ross Hamilton, who sold a company not so long ago for, we'll call it hovering around the 9-figure mark, officially an undisclosed number. And we go all over the place. The episode starts with general philosophy and frameworks around approaching big goals, business, personal things, whatever. But then we get into some very tactical elements of accelerated growth, how the business went from a couple million to a lot more than that, strategies to do that, and the tactics. And then we launch into a whole bunch of nuanced places. Super fun, super wide ranging. I think you're going to like this one. Ross Hamilton. Ross Hamilton, it is great to see you, my friend.
I'm so excited to be here, Brad.
So you have lots of different fun things to talk about. I don't know if you remember this, but we met probably 12 years ago in Tampa through sort of a real estate group, and it was after the event. And I can't even remember the context of why this was happening, but you were talking to a very attractive woman's mother and spending time building rapport with the mother for probably like an hour. And I remember thinking, this is an interesting move and a lot of commitment, and I really appreciate that dynamic.
I have no real recollection, but at a lot of those business meetings, I get so tired of having the same conversation about business with everyone. Sometimes if there's a non-business person, regardless of what their kid looks like, it might be just a good brain relaxation, just to stop talking business for a split second. But yeah, I mean, I'm a networker. I'm always out there talking to people and trying to help them and looking for ways they can help me. And it's been the secret of my success for sure.
Well, I don't know if that was the driver 10 or 15 years ago, but I can't argue with you there, and I'm very much the same way. At those events, I think that, look, we're there to talk business, we're there to do business, but more than that, it's the relationship. And if you have the same damn conversation over and over and over and over, it bores me to tears. I mean, I want to get out of the small talk right away and figure out how to talk about more fun things. So I want to do that with you because you've got everything from endurance athletics, BMX biking, bootstrapping an awesome company, and then selling it for a bunch of money. So I want to talk about that story, but why don't we start at the beginning of your entrepreneurial ventures?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the great thing is everything we're going to talk about here can tie into one quote that I just love. How you do anything is how you do everything. So the way I went about riding BMX, the way I went about doing Ironmans, the way I went about my business was all exactly the same. And it translates to success. It's just my personal success formula. Now, after selling, and retiring, myself, my parents, my kids, I believe that an entrepreneur has a real responsibility to help as many people as possible. It's kind of like the full circle. So now in the charity world, helping with affordable housing in a really exciting way. And I made my first million in real estate. So now I want to give back. And I'm going about that the same exact way. So, just high level, and we can dig into any of this stuff. The way that I go about everything I do is I always, I know this is the easy step, right? I always write down my 3-year goal. And this is why. People always think they can accomplish a lot in a year. And you can accomplish a good amount in a year, but you can accomplish so much in 3 years. And 3 years doesn't seem that far out. So I always have my 3-year plan that breaks down into my year plan, that breaks down into my monthly, weekly, daily. And I use that 3-year plan. I have it on one side of a piece of paper every time I'm writing my to-do list to make sure that everything I'm talking about kind of ties into that, whether it's a goal in BMX or wanting to complete an Ironman triathlon. So you have to write down your goals and you have to review them. And when you review them, you can't just, you have to review them with emotion. Okay. So this is kind of the metaphysical side of it. I'll get tactical in a second, but I have just a religion around the way I start and end each day. The bookmarks of my day, I just defend relentlessly. And I've been a person with 2 or 3 free hours every morning and 2 or 3 free minutes every morning. So just realigning yourself constantly is important. So that's kind of the high level stuff that I know everyone already knows, but it's so easy to think it's not important. And when you think it's not important is when it's the most important. But that's a conversation for another day. But really, what I always do is I align myself with people that are 10 or 15 steps ahead of me. The first thing I do is I figure out how do I bring value to, when I was riding BMX, I got to ride every day with Dave Mira, who was the Michael Jordan of BMX. So every day I rode with this guy, Brad, and he'd be looking at a jump and say, I'm going to do a backflip and touch my tire to the ceiling. Now me, I would think it would stop your rotation and you'd fall flat on your head. But by the end of the day, the ceiling was filled with tire marks. And what that did is it brought the impossible into reality for me. So that's why it's so important to figure out a way to align yourself with people that are far, far above you. Now, how did I provide value for Dave Mira? I worked at his skate shop for free. I helped him build his skate park. I just wanted to be around this guy. And it brought with it a lot of other great people that came in. So I got really good at BMX really quickly because of the people that I associated myself with. Now,
I like
there's
it. Well,
also,
let me back
yeah,
out of this for a second. So I love the idea of keeping the end goal in mind. I love the idea of the 3-year plan. I also I think it's so worth reiterating, revisiting that stuff, because a lot of people feel like they put a plan in place and then revisiting it and realigning and tweaking seems like extra work, but like that is the work. That is the point of the whole thing, is you have to keep looking at the map to see where you are. I love all that. And you said you used the word always, which I sparingly use because it's I feel like there are so frequently exceptions to rules. But the question is, for me, when did you start that?
I started it when when I read the book Think and Grow Rich. I think it might have been 2005-ish. I have a date written in the book because every time I read it every year, and every year I write down just a little something about it because it's different to me every year. But Napoleon Hill gave some pretty specific, only a handful of things that you like had to do, and one of them was writing down your goals in a certain way and revisiting them and revisiting it with emotion. And you're right, the word always is definitely challenging, but I get kind of obsessed with having like a track record. Like I write down the date every time I review it, and if I have a lot of days in a row when I reviewed it, I really don't want to miss that day. Even if I'm on vacation, I can read it on my phone. It takes no time, a reminder, something just to realign myself, because that helps you look for those things that are going to help you get there. You're not staying busy, you're staying productive. So, yeah, I've been doing this probably since 2005, and I love going back over those goal sheets now. It's like a gift to your future self.
Yeah,
Um,
I do too. That's one of my favorite things, is to look at the historical track record of my progress. And one of the things that I find interesting and frustrating at sometimes and encouraging at others are the things that I sort of lost sight of, but got done anyway. And I
mhm.
credit that to the fact that they were on the list in the first place, right? Had
Yeah,
I not put them on the list and revisited them and looked at them, and at some point seemingly forgot about them, but if I had not put them on in the first place, there's no way I would have gotten them done.
yeah,
So you said revisiting with emotion. What does that
yes.
mean to you?
So when you're reading it, you can't just say, in 4 years, I'll be 40. You have to like read, you have to like feel it, like you're in possession with it, because that's what actually gets you that magnetic effect, that like good luck. It's just read it with emotion and the importance that it really holds in this very short life that you have. And it's just, there's so many studies on the difference between reading something and reading something with emotion. And that's hard to do all the time. But yeah, the more you do that, the faster you'll start attracting the things that you need. And the way that you write your goals is very important as well. I have a giveaway that I'm going to give everyone at the end. It's like basically my whole plan on how I do that, where you can just fill this out. But the way that you write your goals is very important, um, to make sure that you can track them. And you want to build momentum, Brad. Like, don't you want to make sure you're hitting your goals and you're just building momentum on things. So you want to make sure when you write them down, you are 100% in control of the result, right? So it could be something like, for a small daily goal, it could be like, I don't know, sell Brad, a connected investor subscription, right? I am not in 100% control of that, but I could spend 30 minutes talking with Brad, explaining to him the benefits based on my research on what's important to him. Like, you have to write down goals that are 100% in your wheelhouse, because if you write down too many goals and you miss them, you're going to throw your goal sheet away. So give yourself a bunch of small, easy things you can do. If there's a task that's hard, my favorite hack for myself is, if there's something I really don't want to do, in my goal sheet, I'll say, spend 10 minutes researching your accountant's questions, right? I can spend 10 minutes, and usually I'll be like, fine, I'll spend 10 minutes. I'll get it off the list. I'll open it up, and then I'll actually get it all the way done. But if I say answer all accountant's questions, then that's going to give me anxiety, and I'm not going to do it, right? So it's like, just showing up is 90% of it. So what's that goal you can write that's going to make you actually open something and start it? And that's how I've kind of tricked myself to get around things that give me anxiety, or just make me feel weird to start.
Yeah, reminds me of a quote, which is, people are not in control of their future, but they are in control of their habits, which dictate their
Yes.
future. And
Yes.
I love that, because it's in what you just said. I'm also a huge fan of structure and frameworks. And there's so many people in our world that buck that so hard and feel like it's restrictive, and they need freedom and variety. And I find freedom in structure and frameworks. And it's because that's what creates the habit that allows me to just do it on autopilot. And one of the structures you just gave was to reframe the way that you speak to yourself, right? Is to put goals in place that are in control, that you have control of. That's great, man. Well, let's jump back to Connected Investor.
Yeah.
So, I don't even know where you were in 2008 when I met you or whatever, relative to Connected Investor. But when did it start? How did you start it?
Yeah. Well, ironically, it started in 2005. Yeah, it started in 2005. Prior to that, I was a real estate investor. And actually, I read Think and Grow Rich before 2005, because Think and Grow Rich got me into real estate. So maybe 2000 or earlier. So yeah, no, I was doing very well in real estate at a very young age. I had a really bad injury in BMX, and I was out for like a year and a half. And I had to figure something else out after that. And I found real estate investing because it was the number one way to become a millionaire in the United States. So I'm like, I'm going to play the odds. So I went from jumping ramps, flipping ramps, to flipping real estate. And I did very, very well. My friends were flipping burgers. I was flipping houses. It was exciting. Um, yeah, there's so many different aspects of real estate that you can really narrow in on if you're kind of a network type person, if you're an analytical person. So real estate is one of the core needs in life.
And what type of real estate were you? doing at that time? Like, as you just pointed out, and I think people that aren't involved in real estate don't really know how
Yes.
how many different little niches there are that you can absolutely build a fortune in, and
Yeah.
how radically different they are. You know, some people try to play in a bunch, but a lot of people specialize and only do single family homes, or even within single family, invest in a million different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll jump into that, but I just want to say this, like, if you own a house, you're a real estate investor. If you paid retail, you're just not a very good real estate investor, right? So you, you are a real, your listeners are probably all real estate investors. And I truly believe that you have a responsibility to add a house or a property every few years to your portfolio, because I promise you that's what's going to take care of you more than anything when you get older. Your business could fail, all of these crazy things could happen. But then if you have 15, 20 properties paid off, you're all good. So anyway, that's just my little why real estate's so important. And the good thing about real estate is you can always find properties below market value. So you don't have to worry about what are the prices. As long as you can buy below market value, you're safeguarding yourself. You can't do that in the stock market. If you could, I would do it. But you go to jail for that type of thing in the stock market. You get rich for that type of thing in real estate. So real estate is just something everyone needs to take seriously. So you know, don't overlook it. But you also don't have to overcomplicate it, which is what a lot of people do because there's so much information now available, Brad. I mean, I was part of that. And when I first started, it was really hard to learn how to invest in real estate. And just like with BMX, I found a mentor, someone who was great, figured out a way to provide value to this person, started to shadow them a little bit, met other people. The same exact thing I did in BMX, I started doing in real estate. And what I was doing was just figuring out ways to buy real estate without using much of my own money because I had none. I literally had $0. So I had to get good at creative deal structuring. And if you can find a deal, money's never really an issue. Real estate's hard if you want to buy retail, but I was doing creative deal structuring and, you know, anyway, we can go down a lot of rabbit holes there, but I found creative ways to buy real estate at a discount. And it really isn't that hard compared to what you probably do at work. It's buy low, sell high, right? Yeah. So a good example is I would knock on the doors of people that were losing their house in foreclosure, and I would figure out a win-win situation for them to either sell the house and move on, or I would buy the house from them and figure out how to let them stay there for a while. Uh, I would partner with different individuals. I would do a lot of wholesaling, a lot of lease options. Most real estate strategies are just one or two contracts. You don't have to be a contract specialist. That's what attorneys are for. So I knew nothing. I just started to talk to people that needed to sell their house, and then I would figure it out. I would figure it out from there, and I became a millionaire in just a few years.
And yeah, and the financial side of that for you figuring it out to get to, your first million in real estate, um, it sounds like, and there's probably a theme coming up here, but it sounds like it was through a network of real estate investors. So you found a mentor and then presumably other people because you still had to figure out how to do the financial side of it. So those creative deal structuring had to involve somebody with money
Yeah.
somewhere, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so what
Here's
what
the
did
thing.
that look like? Did you find a
Yeah.
group or
Yeah. No. Absolutely. But here's the thing. If someone comes to me and says, "Hey, Ross, how do I invest in real estate?" I'm like, oh, shit. Okay. Uh, where do we start? Right? Like, do you have 4 days? I can go over everything with you. But if someone comes to me and says, "Hey, Ross, I have a deal. This person wants to sell it for 250. It's worth 300. They're willing to sell or finance. What should I do?" Then I'm like, okay, good. Let me roll up my sleeves and we can have some fun and I can give you a few different options. So just being in the game, starting to make offers and get creative with people when you have a real deal, people can help you. You know, they can help you get to the next step, and there's really no loss. Sometimes you can help the people, sometimes the deal might not go through. Um, but yes, that network of people was important, which is why I developed my local network. I used to go to my local RIAs, I wound up sitting on the board of my local RIA because I was always there and I was excited to be there. I loved the opportunity that real estate gave me. And that's what made me found Connected Investors, because I realized the more people I was connected with, the more opportunities I had, the more money I could make. So back then in 2005, when I founded Connected Investors, which essentially became like the LinkedIn for real estate investing, uh, it was social media was simple. The platform was simple, and we launched it, and it started to grow, not super fast like Facebook or anything, but as people understood how commerce was done in a social media world, our platform benefited from that, and we grew it. And it wasn't easy. There was a lot of times where I almost lost the company as well. So, those are just common threads you'll hear in everyone's story. And but yeah, we made it through to the other side.
So let's talk about that. So in the beginning, in 2005, first of all, any sort of web development was horrifically challenging. You did not have the resources, tools to build things out. In fact, I don't remember when the 4-hour work week came out, but I feel like that was like 2007, uh, which is sort of for a lot of entrepreneurs, was the advent of outsourcing things. It was when they figured out like, oh shit, there there are resources out there where I can outsource my life, where I can find developers, where I can find, VAs, et cetera, et cetera. So how did you launch that company first? Because I want to talk about the later stages of it, but how did you put it together?
Gotcha. Yeah, and the 4-hour work week. I will say that reading that book is what made me hire my first employee. I believe he said something in there like, after you hire someone, you'll never not have employees again. And I was so nervous. The person I hired, they had a family. I didn't know if this was going to work. But anyway, it wound up working out fantastic. Um, so as far as starting Connected Investors back in 2005, it was very challenging from a development standpoint. There were no frameworks. Um, and I didn't know anything about tech either. I just had an idea, and my cousin knew a guy who can build websites, and that was about enough. And now there are some huge traps that people fall into with web development that somehow I stayed out of. Trap number one is offering equity to like web developers way too early, because man, if I'd given equity to my first web developer, I would have been dead. This guy was, people can't run at the same pace as a really motivated entrepreneur. So giving away equity too early is really, really challenging. You have to be very careful there. Um, but I was able to, and I didn't have to raise money, Brad, because I would flip real estate. I'd flip a house and I'd use the profits to develop out the website. So I'd come up with 20 to 50 grand at a time through house flipping, and I would give it to my web developer who would send me these scopes. And I was like addicted to scopes. Like all of my money was just going into web development, but I was flipping more real estate as a result, and people were starting just to bring me deals. So there was this crazy flywheel effect. So I just put all of my real estate profits into the tech company, and got the first version up. The way I got it out was through again my network, who started to be real estate educators. Right. So I went from a pro BMX rider to a pro real estate investor to some of the early gurus or influencers of the time. I'd start going to those meetings. And I got a crazy story about the one me and you probably met at. But I would just start showing up at these meetings, and I met someone that was doing a product launch, and I convinced him to use my social platform as a bonus because it tied right in, and we privately branded it for him, and he launched it with his platform. We got our first 10,000 users, and then we just kind of kept using that model over and over again until we built up a big base and were able to grow ourselves. But yeah, I launched it through early influencers in the space because I didn't have any, and I didn't even really have a product, Brad. Right? Like it was a social network. So It's tough at first. I had like 80 accounts that were all me, and I was having like conversations with myself to make it feel like people were using the platform. So I was going insane for a little while, just talking to myself online.
uh, well, I think that the dynamics of a marketplace are interesting in general, even through the entire process of growing them, but specifically in the beginning. And oddly, um, I also launched Easy Pay Direct with the proceeds of investing in real estate. So I was flipping houses back in '06, '07, '08, which was a horrible time to be flipping houses if you were intending to hold any of them. Um, but it's what allowed me to build what was a very slow residual stream through payments. So what I knew was that it was an opportunity to get large chunks of cash, and real estate is a great vehicle for that. Um, so I want to fast forward through the marketplace dynamics here, because you said something that is a really interesting, potentially pivotal point when you're selling software, and that is that, and which is only kind of what this is or was at the time, but you said that you white labeled it for somebody to brand it as their own. Did you continue down that path over time? Would you have done that differently today? How do you think about the choice to white label the software for somebody else versus push your own brand out?
Yeah, I don't think it's either or. If you have a software that could be white labeled, even later in my career, we did that. There are issues with white labeling. And the reason we kind of hit a wall with that is because people didn't want to white label it, right? The people that didn't promote it. They would keep it in there. It would be like a bonus for something, but then no one would go there. And it wasn't growing fast enough for me. And then there's all sorts of weird, you know, anyway, it's just challenging to keep it separate but the same. There's development issues, but if you're not good at marketing direct to consumers, then white labeling is a fantastic route to go. I developed the skill to be able to market to direct to people and have them buy from me. So I needed to break free from white labels and just go out on my own because I wanted to have a business that I can grow and scale. And but yeah, it's not a bad idea. Later on, when we developed out our deal finding software, we created a different version for people to white label, and it's a slow grow with white labeling. But if you get tied in with a few of the right people, a lot of real estate software companies that have done the best have been behind the scenes white label. It usually takes them like a decade to get anywhere that's meaningful, but then they latch on to that Grant Cardone or that that person that just shoots up and then they're riding off their success. But it's a bit of a gamble for a while. Even the most successful ones, they've had ups, they've had downs. So I don't know if that answers your question, but for me to initially launch, there was no other way for me to do it because I was, I had no expertise in marketing.
Yeah, I hear you. I would also think that as a marketplace or a social network, you know, having a singular brand is critical to get sort of the masses on both sides, where the marketplace is of value to both sides, right? There's no value in a marketplace if it's heavy on one side and not the other, right? And if
Yeah.
nobody goes to it, right, then you just have Ross talking to himself in 80 different accounts.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Um, I dig it. So I know. So you moved away from the white label proposition. Did you move away from the affiliate promotion of it? How did you continue to grow it? What was the primary mechanism to grow it? After you were at 1 million or 2 in revenue, what allowed you to get 8+?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we were very active in the affiliate world for a long time. And you can grow a business pretty well with the right influencers and affiliates. And I think it's an important part of any business model moving forward. The biggest brands in the world are doing it now, right? Um, but we had to be able to buy our own traffic. And this is actually where my Ironman story comes in, Brad. So I kind of reached this point to where I'd kind of plateaued, had affiliates. I did create like a webinar and my own product within the platform of connected investors. And we were doing okay there, but I was kind of stuck. And I remember I signed up to do the Ironman because I just wanted I wanted every day to change. And when you're training for an Ironman, every single day is now changed. I just wanted to create like a wobble in my gravity and my habits that I was orbiting around. So I couldn't swim, not like you're supposed to. I had never ran a marathon before. My only biking experience was a BMX bike and a little bit of road bike. So, I went about that the same way I always do. I got a coach. I found some mentors, found some people to run with, to train with, to have that co-opetition with, you know, like in BMX, the people you ride with, you compete with. In real estate, the people that you're doing business with, you're competing against deals. So anyway, that's just, I liked to hang out with those type of people. And through this, I met the CEO of a company called Lending Tree. And what they did is they had a marketplace that matched borrowers with lenders. And he was doing an Ironman triathlon as well. And I explained to him how real estate investors were getting financing. And he's like, man, that sounds like 1992 in the consumer world. And then we just became buddies and he mentored me. And I created another marketplace for private non-bank lenders to connect with people that wanted to buy investment real estate. So for the first time, someone could click a few buttons and be talking with a hard or private money lender or just some rich person in the area that wants to put their money in real estate. And it was very disruptive in the space. We created a whole industry. And the business model there, we just copied Lending Tree exactly what they did. We did. We just had private lenders. They had real lenders. Now, Brad, I did this a little premature. So I built it. I showed it to the CEO and he goes, Ross, you're violating like every single one of my patents. I'm like, ooh. He's like, if anyone puts this, on my desk, we're going to have to like send you a cease and desist and probably sue you because he was defending his patent against Zillow because Zillow wanted to do it. Lending Trees, what they were doing wasn't crazy. It was just matching people based off their locations and type of home they want. So what happened is Zillow beat Lending Tree. They lost their patents. The day that happened, I launched my platform. And what that did for me is it allowed me to buy traffic at scale because lenders would pay me to connect with real estate investors, whether they closed the loan or not, between $30 to $100 just to talk to someone. So I could get on average $100 a form. It might have cost me $30 to $100 to get the form with the traffic. And I was able to make a lot of money on people that were interested in real estate. And then they would apply for funding and then they would become part of our social network and see our other products. So I was able to self-liquidate all of my ad cost and spend $500,000 plus a month buying traffic and having a lot of people to sell my software to. So that was just, we were, putzing along and then we did that and we had a hockey stick year because we were able to buy a lot of our own traffic.
Beyond a Million is brought to you by Easy Pay Direct. If you're an entrepreneur and you are still using a product like Stripe or PayPal to accept payments, it is time to find out why the largest names in your industry would never consider doing that. Check out easypaydirect.com/BAM to find out more. Amazing. Amazing. That's such a good lesson for everybody. And I think the lesson for me out of that is twofold. One is look for a better lead magnet. And the lead magnet doesn't have to be your core business. It just needs to run in parallel with it, right? So this was a totally different offer. It's a totally different business model, but you used it as a lead magnet to get people in. And lead generation is a very powerful lead magnet because people will buy leads and you can sell leads whether or not they convert, right? So you had a whole bunch of people, and let's say, for example, you sold the same lead to 4 people and they each paid $25 a piece, and then they compete for that lead. So you get $100 out of it and you can go acquire the lead for shit. You could overpay for them. You could pay $70 to acquire the lead and you're still crushing. That's awesome.
That was actually the 70-ish dollars was the magic number. That's our That's what we needed. We needed to get $70 per, we needed our revenue per lead to be about that, to have the margin we needed. But our back end sales were so strong in the product we already had that even if we lost money, we still made money. So just there is the ability to kind of get spread yourself too thin, but I already had half of the marketplace. I had 1 million people using my platform. They all needed money. So I had to go out and sign up a bunch of lenders. So that was a B2B. I'd never done that before. But it was simple enough. It took us about 100 lenders to sign up to have a really good, robust marketplace of matches.
How did you approach building out that side of it and finding the lenders? Because you mentioned that, it was sort of like the lending tree model, except the language you use, I think, was it wasn't real lenders, it was private individuals or otherwise.
It wasn't banks. Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so how did you find the list, and how did you approach that, and how did you think about it?
Well, for that, I definitely brought on someone to be head of that department because in your business, you have to outsource the anxiety. You have to outsource the obsession. If someone is not worried about something, then I'm worried. Like I need my people to be actually physically worried. That's the only thing that calms me down. I need to make sure someone else is worried about it. So I call it obsession. Like, what are you thinking about when you wake up? What are you thinking about midday? Are you always trying to solve that problem in your head? So we brought on a really good leader in that spot, and all he did was, talk to lenders. I would jump on the line with them as well. We'd go on little road trips and stop by all the different lenders. There were events that we could go to where there were lenders, and we were the only people in the space doing it at the time, which was good and bad because lenders all wanted to pay me per closed transaction. But I couldn't do that because then I'd have to be an accountant. Oh, you closed that lead. Oh, no, we already had them in our database. No, you didn't. Prove it. Like it would have been monumentally hard. And then honestly, Lending Tree helped me a lot. Because Brad, you would think the more leads people want to buy, the cheaper. That's what I thought. But my mentor was like, no, the more they want, the more every lead is. And I'm like, it was just a mind shit. Like having him help me figure out what the scripting was, what they needed. But then you had to have a good conversation with the lenders and make sure they were making their money on the investment, right? And as long as they were at break even or close to break even, we could raise prices. I mean, we made mistakes there for sure. Just in our contracts, we didn't have enough flexibility to raise prices, and ad costs went up. So, it got challenging. But anyway, yeah, no, I hired someone specifically to go do that and go find the lenders. And they're not hard to find through public data and just through events. And it wasn't that challenging. I only needed 100 people. So, you get a few a week, you'll get there.
So at some point, you sold this thing, and I think it was what, year and a half ago at this point, something
Yeah.
like that. Um, I know that people go through all sorts of different journeys when they are selling and afterwards and preempting the sale. Um, how did you come upon the exit? Did you seek it out? Did somebody offer you money? What was that process like?
Yeah. Well, great question. And if you're building a business in your plan, you need to make sure you are going to either sell it or step out, right? Like either someone else needs to come in and worry about it all and you can be a strategic advisor, or you need to make sure you're building a sellable business. That is the light at the end of the tunnel. It will help motivate you. It allows you to motivate people in your company because there's an end goal to where you can give different types of equity. That doesn't really mean anything unless you sell, like phantom stock and stuff like that. We had for some of our people. You can get more investors if you need them, if you have a plan to sell. So, and you take your business more seriously if you have a plan to sell. So, what happened to me, Brad, is Lending Tree tried to acquire us, right? We were a great fit. And I went through the whole process. I had to get my books audited. I had to sit down with the C-level executives and they loved one side of our business but hated the other side. They just didn't get it. They didn't want anything to do with it. So I almost sold to them. And that year, they were going to give me like three payments of $4 million for the company at the time. And that year, the company profited $4 million. I'm like, man, I made I'll just keep this thing for a little while. Right. And then we wound up getting almost 10x that, 2 years later, or yeah, a few years later. But I got to the closing table. Then I'm like, I need to sell this thing. So I wasn't being as proactive as I'm telling you to be. But after that, I'm like, yeah, I really want to sell this thing. And everything I did was to get to an exit, just the type of revenue I was doing. I didn't do coaching because I didn't want to, that doesn't sell well in the niche that I was in. So we stayed more software. Anyway, so I had hired a company to help us get professional looking on paper, create like the pitch books and stuff. And I was able to help with that a lot. And we took it out on the open market and no one was interested. So first sale fell through, second sale, no one was interested. And then, I'd honestly reached a point, Brad, to where I was like, man, I'm kind of over this. It had been like 20 years, right? Started in 2005. I'm like, I'm ready for a change in my life. And then it was crazy. I got a phone call from the company that we were buying data from that said, hey, do you want to sell? 2 weeks before that, I had another call from someone that was trying to buy me, but they were going to buy me in a weird way. Like they wanted to buy my whole company, but only give me half the money now. And then start another company and I was going to get a percentage of it. It was like it was almost like a pyramid scheme. I explained it to my wife and she's like, wait, you have to get 3 of your friends to sell? And then she did she drew it on a board for me. And I'm like, yeah, I guess that is kind of, anyway. But they made a serious offer right at the time that another offer came in. So I was able to use that as leverage. And to be completely honest with you, I was kind of done with the company. Came perfect timing. Got it sold in 6 months during COVID. The company didn't even log into our software. It was crazy. They just had to be in this space. They wanted to buy it and they called me up and they bought it, but I was ready to sell. And being ready mean like I had all the documents. There's a lot of accounting that goes on with selling.
So that's exactly what I want to talk about is when you said, you got this initial offer from Lending Tree and it fell through because it wasn't quite the right fit. Then you started thinking about how to position things exactly for sale. So, what exactly were you doing between that point? What did you shift from that point of, hey, we are producing right now, we're spitting off cash. I'm content, with taking 4 million a year out of this. But it's not the saleable asset that it can be. So what was lacking and what did you do specifically that allowed you to have all your books in order, the paperwork ready, have the model right, so that when the next time came, you were teed up and it was a easier sale?
Yeah, great question. We really focused on retention rate, and just how we did our accounting. If we took an annual payment, it's one thing, how do you book that revenue, right? How do you tie that into your subscription rate? People want to buy predictability. So we tried to make the company, we reframed the accounting to look predictable. It's not like we did anything nefarious. It was just, we were running like a cash style business and we had to move to more of an accrual mindset, which made retention rates look better. We changed our upfront licensing fee into prepaid subscription revenue and kind of broke that out over 12 months. And, so we just did some accounting, gymnastics there to show what we were really doing. Because we were a direct response marketing company and we knew we had to be more of a software company to sell. Now I say all that. And we even got an office. We were virtual and people want you to look like a real business. We got an office right before COVID. That was a $250,000 mistake, but it was fun to build it. Anyway, so all of that actually got thrown out the window, kind of, even if I didn't do that when the company that bought me, because they just had to have me. They didn't care. It was it made the conversations better. We were able to have better conversations, but all they cared about was EBITDA. So they didn't really care how it came, where it came from. Um, so maybe all the stuff I did wasn't necessarily necessary, but that's what you need. That's the way to put your company in the best light, to show predictability, and long term stability.
Yeah, what I heard was, and what I think what you said was, we were a direct response company and we needed to position ourselves as a software company. And there are very well established metrics and multiples across different industries. So, people that are looking to buy software companies know the metrics and know the multiples, and that's the math that they're doing. So when they assess books, they're saying, hey, this is the multiple we're willing to pay based on this because you fit in our little frame of a software company, right? So restructuring things as a subscription and prepaid subscription revenue, they can make sense of, instead of looking at your books and being like, yeah, I don't know what this is. um, why did they want you?
They wanted me because their competitor was buying my biggest competitor. That's it. You know, they, yeah, they were in a bidding war in one spot that didn't go their way. So they just called me up and said, hey, you want to sell? It's just crazy to think that my biggest competitor and the biggest pain in my rear end became 99% of the reason that I was able to get such a big sale to a publicly traded company that actually had the cash to sell. Because our industry, Brad, I mean, you know it, like there's no one's sitting around with 100 million in cash that they can just shovel out a few times a year, right? That would be a top line in our industry. So we had to have someone from outside um, come in, and yeah, it was exciting, which is why I feel a huge responsibility to do as much good as I can with the blessings and the money that have come my way, because I got really lucky. I mean, I had the tenacity to stay out for, to be in the game for 20 years. But yeah, yeah. So that's why I'm rededicated to, making a difference in a lot of more charitable ways.
I dig it. Well, I want to dig into that too. But before we get there, um, a little bit more on the exit. So, you alluded to some numbers, and I know that there's an NDA on that stuff, so I'm not going to
Yeah.
poke too much. But I also know the terms around it are helpful for other people. What can you share about, percentage paid now, earnouts, time that you had to stay on, the role, et cetera?
Yeah, it's all negotiable, right? There's no you know, I mean, there were some areas that I definitely messed up on in the negotiation. Um, but basically, once you sell your company, the money you get up front, you better be okay with that. Because once the books are in someone else's hands, just like I can move things around, they can kind of decide, they can ethically decide how much to pay you afterwards. So the big takeaway is whatever you're going to get up front could be all that you get. I pushed for 70% up front. Um, and I was able to get there. And then the if there is any earnouts, you want that cliff to be as low as possible, which was a huge negotiating point for me, to where if you hit 10% of your goal, do you get 10% of the money or do you get 0%? Some people say if you don't hit 50%, then you get zero. So I was able to negotiate that down, and then you can actually renegotiate after you've negotiated. So there's no end to the things that you can ask for. Uh, all they can do is say no. So again, it's like one of those things with like how do you invest in real estate? How do you sell your company? Like I can have some really fun, intelligent conversations with people that are in the process of it. But try to get as much money as you can up front, obviously. And once you let go of the control, I mean, there's culture clashes, right? There is ways they say everything's going to stay the same, but they have different laws of gravity than you have. So they don't think they're doing anything different, but we can only pay salespeople once every 2 months. Hold on a second. That doesn't work for my salespeople that like being paid every week. Now they're selling way less because they're sandbagging to wait until the next pay. So there's so many small, intricate things, and even with the best intent, um, you're going to fall into their model. You're not going to have the leverage you need. It was the first time I'd ever been employed, Brad. Like I'd never had a boss. So it was so interesting. I have so much more empathy and understanding for people that are working corporate jobs. Like people work there just to not get fired. Like they're not working there to like do anything big. And even the people in my company, after they started working for that company, it's like, all right, showing up. You guys can't fire me anyway. Take you a year to fire me. It really did. It would take like a year to fire someone at the company, where we used to, hire three, keep one when it came to salespeople. No, no, no. Anyway, so just a lot of different things to kind of work through, but I love the perspective that I gained. I have a lot of respect for the people that were above me, and it's a different world. It's a really interesting one. I'm glad I got to experience it when it didn't matter. you know.
I love that frame.
Oh my gosh.
What would you have done differently in the negotiation of terms on sale?
Um, they, I don't, now that everything has flushed out, it all fell very far in my favor. Um, I think I could have had a better attorney, to be honest, explain things a little bit better. There were just a few little things I didn't understand as far as how, like, just, I didn't know all the earnings were after tax dollars. Right. So if I had to have $3 million dollars in EBITDA, that was 3 million after tax dollars. That didn't stop me from getting any my payouts, but cut my check short $1 million, right? Um, which, whatever, it's my kids' money, but it's still like, damn, I didn't realize that. That was the biggest thing that really annoyed me whenever the first payout came, and it was 20% less than I thought.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's an incredibly helpful takeaway for anybody that's going into that phase of business or life, right?
It was just so much money, like it was so much money that you're kind of in this euphoria. You're starting to spend the money in your head, and you don't give a crap if it's $10 million less. It's just like so much cash. Um, I feel so lucky the way that everything worked out.
That's awesome. Well, I want to talk about the charity, but a couple timely things I want to hit on too, because you've been so involved in this, both in real estate and software development and the intersection. It's August 29th, 2023. And we're sort of in the first wave of significant AI and its impact on society, right, at large. We're seeing the first tools that have really wide-reaching ramifications. How do you see the impact on AI in real estate software right now? And like, let's say in the next year or two, what do you see as the immediate use cases, and how is it being used currently with that platform?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would not start a business today that didn't have, AI tied into it, or it was a big part of the plan. And I've been able to lift up the hood of some big companies that are building out, the real estate AI of the future. So with AI, it needs good data. And AI is doing really good now because it has years and years of social data and the internet to go back on. But a lot of real estate data um, is kind of held back for a lot of different reasons. But some of those big data companies are building out AI. Um, And the bigger companies, they're slow. They it's going to be interesting, but I'm not allowed to say too much. But there's a lot of huge impacts on being able to do everything in real estate from an AI perspective. Evaluating deals, figuring out which deals to go after, um, moving the process along. Contract reviews are just awesome with AI. Right now, you can just drop a contract in and ask it a question, and it gives you better answers than I wish I had AI when I sold the company. It probably would have found the things I need to pull out. So I like to use AI for contracts. I use it and then I go to the attorneys. Uh, I haven't seen anything super significant that's really changing things yet, but I'm seeing what's coming. A lot of the big hedge funds will use AI just to make offers on properties. That's been happening for a long time. To evaluate repair costs on a property. I have a great video that I'll include with my gift package that shows drones buying houses. It was kind of like my big prediction back in the day. Um, but I mean, at the end of the day, real estate every property will be its own stock, and you'll be able to sell and buy pieces of the equity and the debt in any property. It'll be open to everyone. That's what I'm seeing, a lot of investment on that side of it, buying a percentage of a house to live in. And that's kind of the direction that real estate is going. So you'll be able to trade equity in your house and buy equity in your friend's house, trade equity with you and your friends. So anyway, it's going to be really exciting. But the financial world needs real estate to be more fluid financially. So they need to be able to move stuff quickly. The financial world's holding that back, but people are figuring out how to get around it properly.
I like that concept. Yep, we've got an interesting roadmap ahead of us here. Well, tell me about the shift into the next phase here, because A, I think it's interesting anyway, but B, when people sell, a lot of different things happen. Some people get completely depressed and complacent and don't know what to do with themselves. Sometimes that manifests as a drunken, disorderly person. Sometimes they immediately get back into another business. And apparently sometimes they do this. Where did it lead you?
Yeah. So, the question is kind of like, now what? When money doesn't matter, what would you do when your whole life was focused around money and that is gone? Um,
When money doesn't matter, but when money doesn't matter and you no longer have the focal point being this huge initiative that you've been spending your whole life on.
yeah. No, I look at it's not retirement. I look at it as rewirement. And because you're rewiring all your priorities, that's really what it is. And when I sold, the first thing I did is I got a coach, because I'm like, man, I'm about to get into some crazy areas here. I mean, imagine if someone won the lottery and they went out and they got like a coach to help them through it. So I got a coach to help me reprioritize everything. A lot of my operating systems, the entrepreneur's operating system is like the stoicism, the Stoic philosophy, which I love and have been obsessed with, because it teaches you how to just push through some of the hardest things in life. That's not necessarily what I want my internal operating system to be moving forward. I want to have more like emotional intelligence and just replace some of those Stoic philosophies with some new ones. So I made sure I already have, I have a real estate investing business. So you want to make sure to have a lifeboat. A lifeboat is a smaller company you can step out onto when you're done. So you have something to do. I want to stay sharp. I want to give back, which is why I'm doing these podcasts. So I'm just maintaining my real estate business. I mean, I bought up almost 200 properties in the last 12 months. But I'm only spending maybe like 4 hours a month on that, right? Because I'm doing it in a different way. I have a team. And then I decided, I almost feel like I'm in this hot air balloon, Brad, and I'm looking down at everyone in traffic, and I'm like, do I feel like fighting through that again? I'm like, yeah, not really, not in the same way. So then I just decided that I wanted to give back, and I'm building out savinghomes.org, a charity for single parents that are losing their house to foreclosure, and it ties into the affordable housing world. And I've kind of reset what the reward is, because the dopamine reward, right, was like looking at the Easy Pay direct settlement statement every day, right? It's like, oh, cool. Then you get mad. You're like, oh, only 30 grand came in today. That sucks. Like, I'm not grading myself on that. So I just kind of replaced the money with how many homes can I save? And that's kind of what drives me. And so it filled a void, but it helped me kind of empty out the competitive side of me that I didn't realize was so strong until I stepped away from it. The entrepreneurial spirit is a possessive spirit. It can be evil, right? You could lose friends and family because this is it, right? So just um, recognizing those roles. I like to do a lot of healthy things. I did 40 miles on my bike yesterday in the mountains in Asheville, which is just gorgeous. So just time in nature, helping people, and then making sure my business is going is good. I'm just trying to do a big exhale for a while, and yeah, I mean, I'll keep my eyes open, but right now it's a snow globe in the financial world. So I'm just patiently sitting on the sidelines, making investments where they work. And that my mentor was like, Russ, just don't rush your money into anything right now. And that's kind of what I've been doing. Real estate, I know, but the other stuff, I mean, no one knows what's going to go on in the world. So I don't know if I answered your question, but just stepping back for a little while and reprioritizing. The good thing is, I was very wealthy before this through real estate, but not at this level. I always had I had a monster to feed. That's what a business becomes once overhead reaches a certain level. Like, you got to make the money every month or else.
Yeah. Rewirement.
Yeah.
I like that construct. I want to hear the story about how you started using Easy Pay Direct, because it's got to scratch my own selfish itch. And you told me that you remember the day that you did
Yep.
it.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. So before I forget, before we started recording, you started telling me a story about how you first started using Easy Pay Direct for Connected Investor. And I don't remember that day, but people tend to remember when there's a pain point like this. Can you tell me what happened?
Yeah, to say the least. I remember that when I first started selling my software, I only sold annual subscriptions, right? So I did this big launch, got thousands of people to do this annual subscription. And then a year goes by, and I'm like, sweet, this is going to be the best day ever. Well, it wasn't. All of those payments went through. My payment processor got shut down, which means the other payments weren't going through. And the people we were working with, they were not responsive. I had no relationship with them. My business just shut off during like the most important time. And I called you up, man, and Easy Pay Direct just came in, and you understood our business. You understood what was going on, and we got set up really fast, and we were able to turn the bank account back on and start collecting tens of thousands of dollars that we were losing. So it was a big it was a big deal. It almost shut down my whole business when the money stopped, because then all the subscriptions just kept bouncing back. Then you got to call people up. They're not. Yeah. Anyway, so I remember that, and you came through and saved the day. And I've been telling everyone ever since, even if you have a processor that you're happy with, you need just get a backup one set up so you can just flip a switch in case a weird decision is made. And it gives you leverage when you're negotiating price. So it's like, hey, I'm gonna like everything out there is really expensive. And anyway, so you saved the day for me for sure.
I appreciate that. I always like hearing those stories. It never gets old. Well, before I let you go, I know you've got a time crunch here. Where do you want to point people if people want to find out more about you, more about savinghomes.org, or anything
Yeah.
else? Where do they go?
So, cool little loophole in my non-compete. I'm not allowed to sell real estate information anymore, but I can give it away. So, all the stuff that I used to sell, the courses in real estate, I can now give it away. And this is also my personal financial, this is the bookmarks of my day. This is how I write out my goals. This is how I keep track of my goals. I want to get this in your hands. So if you just, I don't even have a business anymore, really. So you can just email me and I'll put the email address. Maybe it can be on the screen or in the notes. It's just my name, ross@successcap.com. Shoot me an email and just be like, send me the gifts. And if you're interested in getting involved in my charity in any way, shape, or form by spreading the word or making a small donation, I'll make sure to include a link there as well. And yeah, so just ross@successcap.com. And that's where you're going to find everything, all my courses. I'm just giving it all away. Brad saved me. So hopefully this will save some of you guys and girls as well.
I love that, man. Well, hopefully you have somebody managing that inbox. Ross Hamilton, Thank you so much for the time, man.
It was great being here. Bye-bye.
Love it. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I enjoyed doing it. I need your help. There are 3 places you can find Beyond a Million. The podcast itself, beyondamillion.com, which has some cool free resources, including a free course. And we finally launched the Beyond a Million YouTube channel. I would love it if you would go there and subscribe. And if you don't want to, you still would probably enjoy seeing the visual content. Check it out, youtube.com/@Beyond a Million.